somewhere?
Well, there's a detention area on the north portion of the site. If I can get back, well, you can see. Actually, let me go back. See, there's a detention area that's in the north portion of the site. That's a dry retention area, and on heavy rains it might stand water for a little while, but there's culverts that convey the water off the top down to that dry retention area so that it doesn't sheet flow down the slope and cause erosion. So that water does collect there after a heavy rain for a period of time until it drains away.
Would there be anything on the top of that landfill that the water could interact with that would cause a smell, that when it's concentrated in a collected area like that, it would throw off a little?
Well, again, what's on top of the landfill other than the sand and grass and the clay cover is the RSM. So the RSM is a recovered screen material. That's what it stands for, and it is a byproduct of recycling construction debris, construction demolition debris. So to the extent that there might be some drywall in there or something like that, if that gets wet, if it has an odor, I don't, we did not detect an odor out.
Russo?
Jamie, let me ask you, is there somewhere around that people fish? Because I remember growing up as a child, when it rained, the retention ponds, or what we called the canals, would smell because of the fish, because of the different issues. The one day I was out there were quite a few gentlemen off to the side, just outside the gates, cutting and cleaning fish. And I said, what are they doing? And he said, well, they're cleaning fish, and the biggest problem is they always leave the guts behind. Obviously, they're fishing somewhere, catching the fish. Could this be happening? After rains, is there fishing around there? Where are they catching the fish?
Not that I'm aware of, on the landfill.
Okay, because they're catching the fish somewhere and cleaning it right outside the landfill, because it was happening the day I was there. So, I'm thinking, again, growing up, I remember the canals and the swells. There was always a fishy, nasty, rotten egg smell after rains, because, it would go down so much and then it would slowly come back up with the rain. So, I'm trying to look. This is the first I've heard that, the smell only came after rain. I wasn't privy to that information.
Okay.
But out there I was looking for some kind of reason. But I'm concerned that, again, we're going to continue. This has been going on for a long, long time. I don't know what conclusion or what answer, you would be happy with, or the people would be happy with at this point.
Vice Mayor?
Well, what I might add is, it's not about being happy. I think the comfort level that I have, I hope that we all would have, is if this data that we have that's being presented to us, and this is not the first time we've been conducted some testing or whatever, is showing us that there's nothing harmful to the human population. Is that a very clear point? Is that an accurate statement?
I think it's clear, because there's nothing in measurable, detectable limits that we're at the surface that we are.
Right. So, from a contaminant standpoint, there's some comfort to be had in that, because it's been more than once that we've had, had this testing and we've come to the same conclusion.
Right.
There are
We asked for this extra level of testing.
Exactly. There have been other studies that took into consideration the area surrounding the landfill, and those studies identified some issues. Okay, but those issues in and of themselves, if I correct me if I'm wrong, those were not harmful.
I don't know what others.
Well, more specifically, referring to the area of the railroad tracks and the dust that gets kicked up when the trains come through, and the propane facility, and some of the other work that goes on the other side of the antenna line.
I'm not familiar with those studies.
Right. But it comes back to, though, the quality of life. It's a nuisance. It's an absolute nuisance for these folks, and I just wish we could figure out how to pinpoint it so we can mitigate it, and at this point, we're not able to do that.
I think that the comment that was made earlier, Jamie, if we can set up something special on the website or whatever, and maybe make it Dolores a part of our newsletter, where people are getting into the utility bills, that if they're still experiencing any issues, whatever, that we have a hotline that needs to be called immediately, so maybe we can do some, on-spot testing when an episode is happening, so we could do some more investigation, and if we have to authorize any more testing, we can do so. Commissioner McBoy?
That seems reasonable. Let me see if this sounds reasonable based on your testing and so on. It sounds to me like the shallow stuff was pretty clear that you didn't see any evidence of anything leaking out of existing structure things. The deep wells that go down underneath the various capping things said, yeah, you got some smelly gas down there, some things that you'd expect, anaerobic stuff, hydrogen sulfide that you expect from a landfill. And I think you commented in your report is that if you've got anything that makes leaks in that layer, that stuff that's down below is going to occasionally come up. It doesn't with the existing structure, but if there's something, and obviously where you sample, you can't do your measurements at every point on the area. I mean, it's a whole area. So you can't measure, suppose that where you didn't do a deep well, there's a hole and something leaks. That's not possible to detect with this kind of study. There isn't even any really easy way to do it. So what we're finding is that there's no smoking gun problem. There probably is smelly gas. It probably doesn't have a health hazard to it. It's definitely, hydrogen sulfide is not the nicest smelling stuff. And there probably is occasionally some leakage somewhere or other that would be very difficult to pinpoint. And if you really wanted to completely eliminate the problem, you'd have to do some very serious casing over the top of it that it might or might not work. It might still leak. It's not an easy thing to seal however many acres that is. Is that fairly accurate from what you know?
I'd say it's a fair characterization.
So it leaves us in a little bit of an uncomfortable situation. I think we've done reasonable due diligence. There's not a health hazard in a major way, so that's certainly reassuring. There is apparently an occasional pretty unpleasant condition that we don't like to impose on our residents, but there's no easy solution. I think maybe we commit that we're have some mechanism of taking in the information, and if that helps us eventually find where there's a leak and we can do something about it, that'll be great. And if we do go forward with any alternative uses for the area, that we definitely take into account in the construction, pay a lot of attention to how you do your penetrations into that.
Exactly, I agree. Thank you, I appreciate that, it's a good summary. All right, we're not voting on anything here, so that was a discussion. We're accepting the report, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, moving on.